Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hafner. It's been a little while since our last episode, but I'm very, very excited to bring this one to you today. I have a guest by the name of Quinn on. We're going to bring on in one moment. We're going to talk a lot about some of you have run agencies. We talk a lot about software, products on this show, but we mix in the business world, the marketing world, all these different things. So I brought Corey onto the show because he works specifically with agencies. He advises them for growth, works with people kind of in this, and I'll let him explain it more, obviously. But I brought him on because I've never really had anyone talk about this topic per se. But for those of us who maybe run a small agency already or would like to run a small agency, whether you have a marketing agency, a software development agency, video editing agency, whatever the heck you do, he has a very, very unique take on that. Well, I shouldn't say it's unique, but it's very interesting, and I want to talk to him about it because we talk a lot about specialization rather than generalization. That's what his shtick is. So, going to bring Corey on here in 1 second. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to Corey. But before I do, please, wherever you're listening or watching, subscribe to the show, to the channel. Give us a like, give us a rating, a review. That always helps grow the show and bring us to more people. We're steadily growing. So always appreciate that. So without any further ado, welcome to the show, Corey. How are you, sir?
Dan, I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here.
It's good to have you here. I'm excited to have you. So,
Yeah, it'll be fun.
so I know I might have butchered up, the intro for you, what you do a little bit. So give us more of your breakdown of what you specifically focus on with agencies.
Yeah, so the little bit of context for you and the listeners. I've been in the agency space about 17, almost 18 years now, and during that time, I've started off in sales, made my way up through sales management, and then most recently a chief marketing officer at a digital marketing agency called Scorpion. The cool thing about that role was that we grew from 20 million to 150 million in about 6 short years. And so what I've done since is I've stepped back from that role. Now I am actually investing back in entrepreneurs who are starting agencies and helping them to, I guess, bypass some of the mistakes that we made along the way, as well as to help them to accelerate growth by leveraging some of the things that we did really, really well, both at Scorpion, but across my whole career. So that's the 10,000 foot view.
Okay. So do you actually run your own agency or you're more just working with coaching agencies?
So I'm a consultant or a coach trainer for agencies. So I work directly with entrepreneurs who are running an agency. And for your audience, an agency is a type of service-based business. So this what I talk about, what I wrote my book about, can be applied to agencies. It can be applied to service-based businesses. It even can apply to SaaS businesses. So I think there's a bit of a universality of the work that I do and the problems that I solve. I just choose to specialize because I would be a hypocrite if I didn't specialize in who I'm serving.
Of course. Yeah. And I guess for a little more context for you guys in the audience as well. So this is kind of how I got into what I do. Was I probably told this many times before too, but I started in the app development world, the software development world for myself, and then realized that I had built a skill and then started the company that I run now, the agency that I run, out of that creation of that skill. So it's kind of a cool thing that you can build your own, like I can build my own tools, but I can also run an agency and build things and get paid from it for others. Right. And a lot of people do that when, especially in like the digital marketing space, you learn how to run Facebook ads for your business and be successful with that. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like I could charge people to run Facebook ads for them. Right.
Yes.
But then I think that also leads to a trap and a pit, because you end up being this, when you start up, at least you end up being this generalist, because you're just like, I'll take any client I can get, because it's money. Any money is good money, right? When you start,
I want to be in business, right? I want to make some money, hire employees maybe one day, right? So
is that a common like path that you see for people that go down this path?
That is the default path. There's exceptions, of course, but the default path is, to your point, if it's a service-based business, it's a skill that you've developed that is marketable, that there's an audience for that. people just, hang a shingle, reach out to their high school and college alumni, their neighbors, their family, and say, "Hey, anyone need a mobile app? Because I got them. I can do it.
Yeah,
I can help
that's
you out. I
exactly what I did.
specialize
Yeah.
in this. I've built this, had this personal success. And now I'm looking to build on clients." And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that is a great way to get started. However, for those businesses, agencies, or any type of business that wants to really build a scalable or a process driven business, eventually what happens is that because you're serving naturally a lot of different types of clients, there's a lot of variability in the products you build, the clients you serve, which makes it much more difficult to really build a streamlined business to scale to the larger size.
Yeah, and I think, I've been in that stage for several
Sure.
years, so
Yeah.
I'm very, very familiar with that. Kind of moving out of that a little bit, but no, I think, and then for anyone who's listening that is in that stage, maybe you are a solo founder, you're running an agency,
Yeah.
and you are like the one man wrecking crew, or maybe you have
Mhm.
some small outsourced teams. That's a very interesting place to be. I mean, I know it very, very
Yeah.
well.
Sure.
Because then you have, oh, well, this project has these specific requirements, and we got to make sure that we have this, and it really comes down to, like, the way I figured out to make it work was
Yeah.
document literally everything, or you're going to forget,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
But it also
Yes.
it slows your rate of growth, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Right.
multiple reasons
Yeah.
why that happens.
Yeah, I think the biggest symptom that businesses come across is the business is ultimately tied to the founder when it comes to sales and business development, because
Yeah,
every deal, when you're a generalist, every deal is a little bit different and a little bit nuanced, but you could sell it because you just tell the team that's doing the work what to do differently. Of course, when you bring in a salesperson who isn't you, who doesn't understand the nuances, they're going to sell stuff based on what they think is right, and it's going to cause a lot of chaos in the business. That's
yeah,
typically where this idea of specialization becomes very real for business owners, when they realize, hey, I need to find a way to work on the business, not just in the business from a sales perspective. And the number one way to do that, and the reason why I wrote this book, is the way to do that, based on my experience, is to specialize in serving a specific vertical market or industry, in addition to specializing in what you do, like mobile apps.
yeah. And for you guys listening, that the book he's referencing is called Anyone, Not Everyone. You can
Yeah.
actually grab a free copy of it. I'll have the link in the show notes. There it is on the video if you're watching.
Mhm.
Anyone, Not Everyone. And you actually can get, I grabbed a free copy of the audiobook. And I love that because I'm an audiobook guy. I don't read books anymore. I listen to them. That's my way of doing it. Because I love it, because you can listen to read, you can re-listen, and it's just, you can do it while you're working and zone out or do whatever, I love it. So
Exactly.
we'll have a link for you guys. Definitely check that out, and we'll talk more about that later. But so, okay, so then you're at this stage then where you have let's take a generalist agency owner. Maybe you run
Yes.
Facebook ads, you do software development, you do whatever. You want to specialize.
Mm.
What are some steps? I know I had checked out a little bit. You have kind of a
Yeah.
4 or 5 step process. What are
Yep.
the steps to go? Because, like, sometimes you think, like, how could I ever specialize right now? Like, I have all these plates
Exactly.
spinning at once. How could I go about doing that?
Exactly. Well, a little bit of context for that. Typically, a founder won't want to specialize because I think we're all born with a human bias to reject limiting the amount of opportunity that we have. And literally,
Very
the,
good
the,
point.
right,
Yeah.
the byproduct of specializing is saying yes to a one specific type of client, but then intentionally saying no to everyone else. And so
Which
it's
seems upside down.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I say no to people who literally have a check in their hand trying to give me money?
Yeah.
But of course, that just perpetuates the chaos that you built. Okay. And so the it's only until the founder has tried everything else except for specializing that they come back and they say, okay, Corey, I know you've been talking about this specialization thing. I'm ready because I've tried everything else and nothing else works, right? So that's typically where the conversation starts. The best client for me and for the business owners who are listening, who are maybe in this situation where you've tried a bunch of different tactics. Maybe you've tried, outsourcing lead gen to LinkedIn specialists, or cold calling, or cold emailing, or, buying more ads on Facebook for your agency. When none of that ultimately works in your ability to escape founder-led sales, the first thing you could do is to go back into your current book of business and mine all of the wisdom that already exists. Here's what I mean. If you've
Mhm.
been in business for 2 to 3 years, you have a lot of data. You have a lot of data about which clients have been successful, which ones have generated the most revenue, the most profit, which ones are sending you referrals, right? So there's a lot of data there that you can mine. That's on the quantitative side. On the qualitative side, if you have a team that maybe you have a salesperson, or maybe you have a client success team that's managing current clients, it'd be smart to also ask them, like, hey, who do you like working with? Who do you like selling to? Who do you feel that our product fits the best with?
And maybe the
When you
opposite
collect,
also is, who do you not like?
yeah, and who do you not like? And so the reality is, if you've ever done client services, you'll know that the client services team love clients who are happy, and happy clients are the ones that are getting the promise that they got in the sales process, right? They're getting fulfilled on what they thought they were going to get. They're happy. They're getting their value. It's the unhappy ones who are not getting the value, are the ones that are complaining and canceling and all this horrible stuff. That's typically indicative of not a good fit client, right? And so
Mhm.
the client services team will know. You ask them very simply, who do you like working with? Like, who's your favorite type of client to work with? And who do you hate working with? Right? Who do you never want to have another client of? And you're going to get a lot of good data there.
Yeah.
And and so that's sort of one step. There's two more steps that I think are really important. The second step is to, and this is really important for longevity, is to really ask yourself, do I really give a damn about this industry that I'm about to serve?
Yeah.
Because success comes through spending a lot of time with these folks, getting involved with their industries, going to their conferences, spending a tremendous amount of time with these folks. And so if that doesn't excite you, or somehow that you can't get motivated behind the mission for the industry. I'll give you an example. One of my friends, his name is Alex. Very similar story. Started off as a generalist marketing founder, said yes to everybody, built websites for everybody in the community, even the ice cream truck guy, and eventually realized that, hey, I need to specialize. And the area where he specialized in was medical practices, right? He said, I'm not going to say yes to anyone else but medical practices. And the reason why, the give a damn for him, was he felt that by helping medical practices, that he would be helping the general population be more healthy, right? That was in alignment with his values. And
Mhm.
so choosing a vertical and an industry that you could see yourself having empathy for, that you care about, is a sort of hidden but very important key to long-term success. So doing that gut check and saying, do I really care about plumbers, or do I really care about the manufacturing industry, or do I really care about SaaS businesses? Like, what is the empathy factor or quotient in that is really important. So you want to make
Mhm.
sure that that box is checked. And then the third thing, briefly, is to really get emotional buy-in, is you need to do the math. You need to actually see what the total addressable market is. What I mean by that is, how many actual businesses are there that we can go out and win through focusing, right? Because we're going to be shutting off a bunch of different other opportunities. But if we focus our energy on this one vertical market, and we get really good at servicing them, what's the true opportunity? And Dan, I'll give you a quick math example. What a math here for us, to give you a sense of how this works. Any guess about how many residential plumbing businesses there are in the United States?
Oh gosh, it's got to be in the millions, I would think.
You think there's a lot of plumbers, a lot of houses.
Yeah.
The latest research I found was 157,000 plumbing businesses in the U.S. Okay, these
Oh,
are
okay. I was
residential
way high.
only. That was way high. It's okay. Who thinks about these things, right? So if, let's say, you and I, Dan, we had an agency that was doing lead gen for service-based businesses, and we said, okay, we know we need to specialize. Let's look at plumbers. So 157,000 plumbers in the US that we can sell our lead gen services to. As a result of focusing, we may be able to close 1%, 2%, 3% of the market. If we just close 1% of the market, which is 1,570 plumbing clients, we would be, and we charge $10,000 a year for our services, our revenue would be $15.7 million, serving one type of client with the same service over and over and over again. Guess what happens? You get a lot of brand awareness because people know who you are. You're an expert. You provide amazing results because you do the same thing over and over and over again. What's the old Bruce Lee saying? Like, I fear not the man who does 1,000 kicks 1,000 times. I fear the man who does one kick 1,000 times, right? Someone who just has all that reps and all those practices. And that becomes your competitive advantage. When you do the math in this process, the third step of really doing the math, figuring out what is the true opportunity for our business, if it is big enough, you usually get a big grin on the face of the founder saying, okay, I think I can get 1% of all the businesses in this vertical market and I can have a really great business doing it.
Yeah, that's gold right there.
Mm.
No, that's very interesting because and I can share another story as
Yeah,
well,
please.
and maybe the audience will be familiar with this. That there was a product I launched in the taxidermy space, right? That
Great.
when I had done some research and some looking into things, there's definitely an addressable market there, um, and I do give a damn about that industry,
Right.
but it was also it's a very I don't want to trample on the taxidermy industry. If any of you are trying to get into it, I wouldn't highly
Mm,
recommend it. It's a very weird industry, um,
I'm sure.
but there was a lot of lessons learned in that one. But that is, and I found myself struggling with that from time to time too. Is because you could go on ChatGPT or something and you could say, hey, what types of markets could I vertically serve in my agency of whatever I do? And it'll
Yeah.
list off 100 different markets. And there's probably money to be made in all of them.
Yeah.
But that's again going generalist and going horizontal, whereas vertical's going
Mhm.
super deep into one of those
Correct.
things.
Narrowing deep.
And you really do have to like figure out do I like working with these people? Do I know how to serve them better? And that I mean, it might come easier to some people than others. I've always found that to be very hard to do. Maybe that is a natural thing as well too. Um,
Yeah.
do you find
What have you found hard to do, Dan? Like what part of that was hard?
um, I think part of it is hold on one second, sorry. Never fails. They always have to bark. They'll lay there all day and then they'll be
That's it.
barking when I'm on an interview.
Murphy's Law.
I know. The what I've found hard to do um is really is focus on what one do I want to what one do I want to serve? What one do I want to be
Yeah.
all about? Because
Yeah.
I think it goes back to that thing you said. It's very natural for. I think there's a part of it's like, well, you're giving up so much. Don't do that. Don't do that. That I think that's part of what I've struggled with. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there are horizontal or generalist agencies and service-based providers that are very successful. They're profitable. They do tens of millions of dollars. It's not that you can't be successful that way. It just becomes a challenge when we live in a world today where there is just so much noise in the market, so much competition. There's so many, like, it doesn't cost anybody, it doesn't cost anything for a young upstart to start an agency or to start a business, to launch a SaaS or to launch a mobile app, and so as a result, the market is full of buyers who are not sophisticated and they can't tell the difference between, someone like you or me who has a lot of experience and brings a lot of value to the table versus someone who's a slick marketer who has maybe their own best interests in mind, right? And so as a result of that, you have to find a way to position and position yourself in the market such that it has built-in credibility and uh, you're able to build sort of respect through the peer networks that exist. There's something that's called a day one list. It was based on an article in Harvard Business Review. And what the day one list is that 80 to 90% of B2B buyers have a list of 3 to 4 vendors in their mind the very first day that they make a decision to make a buying process, like that they
Mm,
want to make a change,
interesting.
right? And so it's kind of like if you and me said, Dan, if you said to me, I'm gonna go buy a car, I could bet in my, I'll bet you that you probably have 3 to 5 cars that you would probably test drive before making
Yeah.
that decision, right? Just a small handful. You wouldn't go test drive 40 cars, right?
Yeah.
You have already some ideas of which cars that are going to be on that short list. Same thing is true for a B2B buyer. They already have a short list. And the ways that you get on that short list is either one, you've worked with them before, like the B2B buyer has worked with the vendor before, so they're thinking about hiring them. That's one way. The other way is through peer referrals, right? So these B2B buyers go to their peers in the market and say, "Hey, I'm a plumber. You're a plumber. Who have you worked with for marketing? Because I need a new agency. Mine's not working out." Right? They go to their network, and so the trick is, how do you get on? How do you become that brand that gets referred, right? And the way you do that is by specializing, by becoming the best in the world through repetition, right? Over time at solving a specific problem for a specific audience. And that's how you become much more referable.
That's very interesting. I like that day one concept. And I think for those of you listening, this definitely I can see is very, very applicable and transferable to
Mhm.
SaaS, right? It there's probably only a certain amount of um software or tools out there that you would think,
Yeah.
okay, I have this problem that I'm looking for. And when you Google things, what are usually the results that come up? Hey, the top 15 or the top 5 best softwares for this type of
Yeah.
thing or whatever it is. They
Yeah.
don't have lists of thousands of them. They have
Right.
like, some people write blog posts on the top 10 of this or that or whatever, and you start to see the same one over and over. You're like, okay,
That's
that's
right.
one I want to try. Yeah.
That's right. And
Interesting.
there's that Martech map, of all the logos of all the different marketing software. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
this, but there's
I think
right.
so.
It's just
Yeah.
this. It's like it's in a PDF document. It's one page, and it's comprised of all of these logos of different SaaS companies in marketing technology. And it's like the logos are so small because they're trying to fit it all in one page. There's like tens of thousands of businesses in MarTech, right? And so as a buyer, specifically a non-sophisticated buyer going into the market and saying, well, what's the best email marketing software I should use? And there's like a map of 500 different email marketing software out there. You're probably going to go, I don't know any of these. I've heard of Constant Contact. I've heard of MailChimp and maybe one other, and that's who I'm going to talk to, you know?
Yeah, and that's always the thing I've always heard from other people too is when you have that specialization, it really allows you to cut through the noise inside of whatever kind of content you want to create. Uh,
Absolutely.
because you
That's
you
a
can
big
very talk
benefit.
to a very specific person.
If you don't have the specialization, if you're serving businesses of all shapes and sizes, you end up doing what I call peanut butter marketing, which is you spread your really thin marketing
Mhm.
budget across a lot of different channels and it's completely ignored because no one knows what you're about. Because you
Mm.
serve everybody, you serve nobody, right? You have to speak very generically. And when you specialize, the marketing becomes actually a lot easier because you know which lists to buy, which content to write, which podcasts to start, which associations to join, which conferences to go to.
Yeah.
All of those things become really crystal clear. And at that point, your focus is which of these channels am I going to go and really invest in to build my presence and awareness in this specific market.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to shift the conversation a
Yeah.
tiny bit here because you've mentioned on your profile this thing I find very interesting and I've had a little bit of experience with, and you talk about this using this methodology of using like outbound gifts
Yes.
to grow revenue. We're not talking about GIFS people. gifts with a T, like actual, not gifts like memes. I didn't know if you could hear the T on that word.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Physical gifts.
because I've heard of there was a guy I followed for a long time. I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but they
John
have
Ruhlin.
um no, I don't think so. It was all they had this method of sending out video boxes
Mhm.
where you would kind of have like a box that would show up and it had like a
Yeah.
personalized video and like different things.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
remember who it is. Um, but what is that strategy?
Yes.
How do you employ that? Like I'm very curious to hear how you do
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'll tell you the story about how it came about. It actually was very, very influential in our ability to scale the business from 20 million to 150 million
Mm,
using gifts. So I'll tell you the context.
wow.
So I was hired as a chief marketing officer at this agency called Scorpion, which was the name of that agency. They were doing about $20 million at the time when I joined, and the founder was really eager to grow, which is great for me as a marketer because he wanted to do big things. The challenge I came into was that all of the business was coming inbound. It was through referrals, it was through inbound campaigns, and that's all good. Like that was great, but I wasn't hired to kind of nurture that. I was hired to accelerate sales. So what did we do? We had a 6-person sales team. I went into the sales floor, and the team and I, we went in there and we said, hey guys, you're doing a great job on closing the inbounds. We need you to start picking up the phone and start doing some cold calls. And of course, that led to a tremendous amount of sales resistance because these guys were used to picking up the phone and making a lot of money. Now they were picking up the phone and having to be rejected 30, 40, 50 times a day. And so
Yeah.
the challenge that we faced was that we were calling into attorneys. Attorneys had gatekeepers, which are effectively the office manager. They answer the phone. They prevent the salesperson from getting access to the attorney. And so we struggled with this idea of outbound for a long time by doing the traditional cold calling, very, very low success rate. Everything changed when we decided to send a gift ahead of the cold call. So what we did is we went out and found the most amazing cookies, gourmet cookies, put them into a tin, put them into a FedEx box, and FedExed it to the attorney. The attorney had never heard of us before, but they got these
Wow.
overnight gift. Of course, overnight packages, FedExes, bypass the mailroom. They land right on the attorney's desk, opens the box, pulls it out, has an amazing cookie, like almost falls out of their chair because it's that good of a cookie, right? The cookies end up in the break room, and everyone in the law firm is standing around having these cookies and saying, well, who brought the amazing cookies? And someone else would say, well, I don't know, some company called Scorpion. And someone else would say, well, who's Scorpion? And but eventually the name Scorpion's like bouncing off all the walls of the law firm. By the time we called, it went from the traditional, like, they're not available, the shutdown from the gatekeeper to, Dan, you're the guys who sent those cookies.
Yeah.
Oh my God, those were so amazing.
That's genius. It's
Um,
genius. I love it.
let me put you through, right? Because
Wow.
it was this thing. So that we started with cookies, but that worked tremendously well as the first touch. What we realized is that not everyone that we sent cookies to would engage us. Some would ghost us, right? And so what we did is we would send another gift in 3 months. And then if they ghosted us after that, we'd send another gift. We'd send gifts up to 3 years to the same high value prospects. Now, you have to keep in mind, this is not traditional outbound where it's like a spray and pray. It's a very sort of narrow list, very curated list that
Yeah.
that you're sending the gifts to the right people. But effectively, it transformed our ability to really control our growth because we knew that if we sent out gifts, we would get sales. And that's how we grew.
Yeah. Cause I mean, when you think about that, with even though that costs you money up front, right? Like you're spending
So
money
does that,
kind.
so does everything.
So does everything. Yeah, exactly. But I'm just trying to put this because I'm going back to where like if this was
Yeah,
me 3 years ago, this is
sure.
what I would have been thinking. I'd have been like, man, like that sounds like I don't know. Like I don't know if I want to sacrifice revenue for that.
Yeah.
But then you
Yeah.
like if you look at probably what you guys spent on that, even though I'm sure the gourmet cookies were probably a little bit expensive, like
Mhm.
the amount of money you made on the back end with that sale, it was like a
Yeah.
drop in the bucket.
Absolutely. And that's
Wow.
part of the reason why it allowed us to scale. We went really heavy into gift-based outbound where eventually we built a team of 60 people, 60 salespeople. Each of them had a list of 250 prospects, and every one of those 250 prospects for each of the 60 salespeople got a gift every quarter. Like we would go deep into this because it
Wow.
was just so profoundly impactful. The interesting thing about outbound, which is different than inbound, is that when people come inbound, sure they're ready to buy, they're in the middle of a buying process, but you can't control for what the quality or the size of that opportunity is. And typically inbound
Hmm.
deals are smaller than these type of outbound deals where you can go out to the big whales and say, I'm going to send you gifts until you talk to me. And inherently, because they are a larger firm, you've targeted them, the deal value is going to be much higher as well. So not only are you able to sort of control the your pipeline generation, but you're also able to increase the average value per deal in your book of business through doing this targeted outbound.
That's interesting that an inbound type of deal would be a tend to be a lower end sale, whereas outbound you can
On average.
but this applies in SaaS, I think too, is
Mhm.
if you set up a SaaS deal, say it's $100 a month or $10 a month or whatever you want to sell your SaaS for,
Yeah.
there's mechanisms you have in place that people can pay, they find it, you market it, they sell them. Okay, great. But then you can always say like, okay, I'm selling this to hair salons. I don't know. But then you could go target the biggest 100 hair salons in the country and offer them
Yes.
an enterprise deal that's going to be
Exactly.
100 times, it's
Right.
$1,000 a month or $2,000 a month or whatever. And then boom, all of a sudden you're spear fishing, you're whale fishing, as you called it. And
Yeah.
those people they're going to look at your $97 a month thing and be like, well, that doesn't really fit us, but they're like, hey, I have this other offer. Oh,
Right.
okay. Here's how we could,
Enterprise level. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then I was just talking about it in terms of SaaS, but
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
So
Wow.
the other, I guess, challenge with inbound, in addition to being average deal size is typically smaller, generally speaking, is that based on research, only 3% of the total addressable market is coming inbound, is like doing research to make a change
Mm,
in any quarter. Whereas about 80% of the market is in what I call the zone of indifference. Okay.
yeah.
The zone of indifference is they have a SaaS partner now. It's okay. It's not what they really thought it was going to be, but they're not actively making, a change or
Just kind of
actively
moving right
shopping.
along. Yeah.
It's like kind of like my wife. She's got the iPhone 13, I think. And it's slow and the camera isn't as good and it crashes every once in a while. She could use a new phone, but she never gets around to making the change. It's not
Because
that
it
big
does
of a
what
deal.
she needs it to do.
Yeah,
It's just like,
exactly. She's
whatever.
cool. Like
Yeah.
she's cool. If it's me, I'd be bonking my head against the wall. But so for her, she's in the zone of indifference. That's the beauty of great, very targeted outbound, like gifting, which is it needs to be unique, it needs to be striking, it needs to leave the right impression. When you do that, you can get someone out of that zone of indifference and actually have a great sales conversation that in a non-competitive environment because they are not shopping. You're targeting them. You get on the phone with them. If you know how to manage or navigate that sales conversation, you're able to close deals without a competitive review.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to think about that one. That's a cool
It
idea.
is
I've heard
good.
of it before, and then I just was
Yeah.
very interested to ask you about it. Um, but again, that comes back to, if you're a generalist, you can't send gourmet cookies to every business, and you go bankrupt in 5 seconds.
Absolutely.
Regardless of
It's
what you're doing.
exactly. And it is what I call it, you build your 20% list. If you are familiar with Chet Holmes, who wrote a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so in there, he talks about your dream 100, which are the 100 businesses that would set up your business as clients, that would set up your business for massive success. That's the kind of list you want to send the cookies to. It's not a broadly distributed strategy. It's very much kind of more like ABM, if you will, at marketing.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Very, very, very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably a good point to end this. This was really, really helpful. Very, very interesting. Do you have
Yeah.
anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up at all?
No, I think if this conversation is interesting to the listeners, they want to lean in further. As you mentioned, Dan, I'd love to offer the book for free to your audience. It's a best-selling book. It's been endorsed by John Ruhlin, by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, a bunch of really great authors. Aaron Ross, who's a big marketing guy, author. So it's a really great book. So they say you can download it for free at anyonenoteveryone.com. That's anyonenoteveryone.com. And right there, you can get access to the workbook as well as the audiobook.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Again, I picked up my copy, been starting through it, and it's already very, very good.
Yeah.
Definitely got my wheels turning before this interview, and I will definitely keep my wheels turning with it.
Good.
So yeah, very good. Good for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll put the link for you guys in the show notes here, wherever you're listening or watching. Definitely be sure to grab a copy of that. Check out Corey on, I'm sure he's on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is my hub. That's where I spend time.
Yep, I figured as much. So this was very, very helpful. Thank you so much. Really
Absolutely,
appreciate having
Dan.
you on the show. This was very, very enlightening, very interesting, and definitely something worth a re-listen. I think a lot of our shows
Beautiful.
are worth that as well. So, but anyway, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Corey. And for any of you still listening, thank you very much for tuning in. Whether you're watching this, listening to this, again, as we always appreciate any kind of shares, likes, follows, subscribes, whatever the heck it is. We always really, really appreciate that as well. So until next time, everyone, we'll see you later. Be sure to grab the book, and we'll see you next episode. See ya.